Hey folks, we're thinking today about how we can continue to use a drawing or an image into a collage and repurpose it and kind of reconfigure it. Also just thinking about collage and ideation, which is coming up with ideas to communicate, since drawing is, after all, a communication device. So this is a drawing that we did using the gray paper, the white charcoal, and ink. I went ahead and took a picture of this and printed it because I wanted to think about how I wanted to handle this vignette. And so one great way to do that is to make a copy and check out different ways in which you might want to handle that vignette before you go ahead and do it on the actual drawing, especially when there's a certain amount of permanence, such as ink. So this is a method that I've started to use recently. I like it better than working in Photoshop or anything like that because it's a bit more hands-on. You can get a more painterly exact style, of course, with it, and it's very low stakes. So I've used this method to come up with final editions or drawings for illustrations I've done. This one's for an album cover. So it started with this drawing. There were other editions I printed. I made sort of a silhouette version. I made an interior version, but they're all based on sort of the first sketch, and I would Xerox paint over, Xerox paint over, Xerox being an old-fashioned word. I would take a picture on my iPhone and then print it. So I wanted to show you that edition. I also did a print, a big woodcut, and the original looked like this, but very large, and I scaled it down and printed it and did a lot of painting into it to see how that might change the image. So you can see the progression of adding more white, thinking about what I might want to cut out, what I might not want to, and also sort of thinking about these images in a different way and playing with them, seeing them in multiples made me feel differently about the print itself. I even made sort of a Rhode Island logo for no good reason, thinking about this swimmer. And a printing mistake happened, which I kind of loved, and thinking about it this way. So multiples and taking an image and varying it doesn't have to be something you do just in Photoshop or in design class. This is also a drawing technique. So anyway, moving from that, but continuing with the image, I also printed this vignette, thinking about this image as sort of a wallpaper idea or something decorative in a way. And I also cut out the hand from my Xeroxes in different, this one is in that water photograph that I printed a while back. And so I'd like for you to, in this part of the exercise, to either photograph and cut up some of your own drawings. It does not have to be one image. I am absolutely just doing this because of something that I'm interested in. You can cut up several images. You can use images from magazines. You could use images from the newspaper. You could print things out and cut them up. I think it's good to start with black and white and gray. We are going to be using your last sheets of black, gray, and white paper in Canson to work from and on top of. And basically, what I'd like you to do is to begin the idea of working with collage. And collage for ideation is a great tool because, again, you can play with different arrangements of things and think about them differently. So you can think about, you know, for me, this image, how do they transform? How do they shift, you know, from one to another? How could I play with this to get different reads or meaning? And allow yourself to have fun and kind of think about how things shift a little bit. And it's totally non-committal. Again, you know, looking at something like this, you know, maybe it starts to spark something, an idea that would make you want to go further with the drawing. So, you know, with this, I'm thinking that it somewhat reminds me of a tree. And so if I were doing that, maybe I'd be like, oh, well, maybe this is more like a tree, you know, and playing this way. What happens if I switch one of these over? So playing with negative and positive space, the formal elements, but also thinking about meaning. So that's the first part of this. You can definitely bring in, you can cut or print on one of these and use one of them for the collage. You could collage on top of all three and tape them together and have it be a fold-out drawing if you need more space. And you can use newspaper clippings. You can use text. I'm thinking about this O formation and the OK symbol. And so I was kind of going through my limited newspaper and looking at words that looked interesting to me. So you can do that too. You can introduce color if you want. This is, you know, a print I have lying around that I'm playing with. I'm thinking about these hands and how they might come into play in my collage. So the goal is to cut first. Generally, if you have a lot of material first, including things from your own drawings, and kind of play with them before you glue them down, that's a great idea. And then we'll go on to thinking about how we can manipulate the drawing with some of our materials, such as white paint and ink and pen and Sharpie and beyond. All right, so this is the first step. Get yourself going here and we will move on.